Hey, what is going on, everybody? My name's Earl here. This is a 160,000 mile update of my W204 C350 here with the M272 motor. Long story short, this update is pretty minimal because there's not a lot of things that, in my personal opinion, has gone wrong with this car. First things first, I think this is the first time this car has not had any, I guess you could say, potential oil leaks. So if we go ahead and take a look at the odometer right here, you can see, starts recording. Well, that's my dash cam. You can see we have 160,000 miles. I clean this car pretty much every week because this is practically also where I kind of live. I mean, you know, when you drive a lot, sometimes you just have to take a power nap, sometimes you just have to spend the night in your car, or, you know, spend a couple of hours. So I always like to make sure my car is in really a clean condition, because that's also technically your second home, right? So this is 160,000 miles. I've replaced quite a few parts in this engine bay. I recently did brake service, so I got that flushed. In my previous videos, which practically a year now, I got this little strap bar right here, which dramatically improves the front end of this car. It definitely feels more stiffened, but you also have to keep in mind, because this is a 160,000 mile, I'm starting to feel a lot more wear in the suspension, which we'll get into a bit. But overall, this M272 motor, oh my gosh, when I tell you guys, this is one of the most bulletproof engines I've ever driven. I've driven about, what, 90,000 miles in 3 years, which is pretty crazy. And, you know, a 160,000 mile vehicle, it does not look like this engine bay wise. So if I touch this, yeah, really, really clean. You can touch anywhere here, and this is what my hand would look like. Even from the very beginning, this car came like this. I just maintained it. Once in a while I would power wash the engine bay. Never really had any issues with power washing, but regardless of that, I always do my oil change now at 5,000 miles. I used to do 7,500 because I just do a lot of miles. However, after a couple of years, I believe starting last year, I just haven't really driven as much as before, so I average around probably 25,000 miles now. Or yeah, because back then I used to average 30 to 40,000 miles, which was insane. But the fact that this car was handling it like a champ, pretty good. I did the usual belt service and whatnot a couple of years ago, so all these belt stuff pretty new, and these are OEM. As you can see, it is Mercedes stamped right there. Thermostat replacement, which was one of the reasons check engine light came on. But other than that, that was the only time this car started acting up, and that was around, I don't know, like 3 years ago practically, so that was a long time coming. Other than that, I did preventative maintenance. So these cam plugs right here, the sensors, camshaft sensors, even these, I replaced these. These were pretty cheap on Amazon. I found these on Amazon for like, what, like 30 bucks. The only recent replacement I did for this car was this oil cooler right here, which, fun fact, I actually had this for quite some time. I was supposed to do this last year, but then I got lazy, and so I just kept driving, and it got to the point where, I don't know if you could see it properly right here, but this part of the engine bay was practically black. So as you can see, if I touch it with my hand now, it's pretty clean, but you know, it had some serious seepage to the point where it's quite dangerous, because you never know, you could land on the serpentine belt and slip, and I'm far away from home. So even though it was the most simplest thing in the world, I kind of neglected it for quite a bit, you know, but I finally did it. So I'm glad I did, because man, this engine bay, I'm quite proud of. Very clean engine bay, as you can see right there, bone dry. Just absolutely amazing. Motor mounts are definitely going bad as well as transmission mount. Not an expensive part, but labor wise, that can be a little bit expensive depending on what shop. So I'm gonna search some shops around the area, see what I can do with that, because those are definitely in need of replacement. They're not terrible. I've felt worse. One of my friends' C300 W204 was just terrible, but this is definitely getting to the point where the door shakes quite a bit when you put it in idle. If you guys remember from the last video, I replaced the headlights with an aftermarket AMG-like headlight. So as you can see, it is black housing, which looks pretty good on this black car. And I also replaced the fog light housing, which did not turn out pretty well. As you can see, we have some burn-ins right here. So I stopped using that because I believe these glass are just terrible quality from Amazon. What did I expect, right? So I should have just kept the original one despite having a lot of nicks and crannies from all that road debris. Bumper wise condition, as you can see, there's a lot of road rash. That's to be expected on a 160,000 mile car. As you can see, definitely a lot of little nicks and crannies if you look closely, but also honestly it could probably be fixed with a paint correction. Worst case scenario, just replace it or get it repainted. But you know what's the most surprising part about this car is that I really have not had too much accidents on it, aside from the curb rashes, which is to be expected, right? And yeah, that's speaking of that, that was actually my drain plug. I left, yeah, it was slightly seeping because I put the wrong washer on it. So my mechanic told me to, well, he gave me a fresh actual Mercedes washer and that fixed the problem. So no leaks. Cam plugs right here in the back, pretty dry. Now, tire wise, we have a fresh set of Continental tires right here. I think I've already driven about 7,000 to 8,000 miles on these. And fun fact, the first month I got these, I had a nail on one of the tires, literally. Which was stupid, right? Like, come on. I got Newslink sway bars almost a year ago. And of course I have really new, fresh set of rotors and pads. So I don't know if you can see the pads right here. Pads are practically brand new. I bought them on Rock Auto because of the tariffs. The rotors and pads from FCP Euro, instead of what, 350 bucks, they went up to around $500. So you know, I'm not paying 500 bucks for a set of rotors and pads on a car that is almost 20 years old. It might be, you know, if that was an AMG, I would understand it. But this is just a regular M272 motor with less than 300 horsepower. So I'm not doing that. There's no reason for me to pay that. And yes, I know that would have been OEM, so it would have been guaranteed good quality. But I mean, these weren't so bad after all. I've driven them about, I don't know, like 2,000, 3,000 miles already. So pretty good set of rotors and pads on Rock Auto. Now suspension wise, this is getting a bit bouncy on the front, the back a little bit too. So I think the struts and a little bit of a control arm situation will need to be replaced at some point. So I need to keep that in mind. That's another costly thing. It absolutely amazes me how easy a black paint can get dirty. I mean, I washed this yesterday and man, a little bit of dust and spider webs and a little bit of bugs right here literally makes everything dusty. Very, very fun. Anyway, everything is practically what you expect on a 160,000 mile vehicle. At one point last year, I accidentally rear-ended a pole, which wasn't my proudest moment. That's what happened right there. And luckily enough, which, you know, what surprises me was that it sounded pretty bad. You know, this car did not came with rear view camera, so I don't know what happened. I just zoned out. I backed into a pole at the parking lot, and that happened right there. But I topped it off, or I guess use a paint filler, and that kind of solves things. So it was right there. You can see that right there. So aside from that defect on the back, could use paint correction again. This car, if you look far away, that's really what I care about. If you look far away, you cannot tell that this is 160,000 miles right here. And I mean, 160,000 miles nowadays is pretty minor. Everybody drives, what, 200,000 miles now normally. 100,000 miles back then would be crazy, but you know, that's with the old cars. Okay, so for the back, I'm gonna take off my work clothes right here. The back practically does not have any damage. I sleep on this, so I have a pillow right here and whatnot. Well, it is a bit hot, but little wear and tear. Nobody really uses the back seat. The front is where you see the most wear. If you look closely right here, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in a previous video, I replaced all these buttons because typical Mercedes of this generation. And I found these replacements on eBay or Amazon, I believe. The biggest issue of the interior, you already guessed it. This right here, my seat is falling apart. Very typical for Mercedes of this era with the MB Techs. You just cannot avoid this. And this wasn't here last year, and now you can see it's getting worse and worse. And actually, that's a new tear. So I got a couple of options: send it for repair or just replace the whole entire thing. Just not sure if I'm willing to spend 300 bucks on a piece of MD Tex, knowing that it will go bad again. Depends on how well I want to keep this car condition wise and how long I'm keeping this for. I normally don't put any air fresheners on my mirror because I like to keep it sleek and clean. So I realize you could use your phone holder, and when it's time to take it off, I just take it off and throw it away. That was a little bit of an invention I realized I could do, even though you could theoretically buy those dedicated AC vents air fresheners. Not much to talk about interior wise because condition remains the same, just a little bit more wear and tear, so a little bit more scratches right here. Yeah, not much going on. Seat on this is way better, as you can see. Carpet is still in good shape. If you guys are getting a W204, make sure you guys check if this part right here is wet, because the sunroof, you need to replace the drains every so often. Clean out the drains, my bad. Right here, typically these also go bad. As you can see right there, it's very flimsy, made out of plastic, the glove box. I have my Uniden R7 right here, which I actually have not used for months now. And that's typically because I just drive the speed limit. You know, I'm trying to get the best gas mileage now. Got my first aid kit right here, and I got my workout headphones right here. I really like the sound of the M272 motor. I feel like if people actually paid attention to these cars and made an actual good exhaust that is not too expensive, I think it would sound pretty good. But, you know, what can we do, right? You got the aftermarket lights right here, which looks really good at night. It looks exactly like the facelift model, and it definitely freshens up the look of this car. I mean, look at this from far away. You cannot tell this car has 160,000 miles. We also have LEDs, and I try to keep the original bulbs on the side markers as well as the eyebrows, because it doesn't really look good with LEDs. But this is LED, these are bulbs too. Take a listen to that engine. I've had occasions where a couple of my friends and people I know who have W204s with their cold starts, they have some rattles, which is concerning, right? But 160,000 miles, this thing is like smooth as butter. You can see that right there. No knocks, no leaks. We have the CarPlay situation right here, which is, in my personal opinion, one of the best investments I've ever done to this car. As you can see, it's surprisingly responsive. I'm not going to show you guys the maps because I don't want you guys knowing where I live. You can even use the original infotainment right there, because theoretically this is just a tablet connected to aux directly to the stereo right here. So scroll down right here, and you could even use the original little dial right here on the bottom. Let's see, if you hold this for a couple of seconds, what's the weather in DC?
It's currently cloudy and 77 degrees in District of Columbia. Today's high will be 86 and the low will be 63 degrees.
So yeah, you still have your basic function keys on this CarPlay. So it's like straight up OEM, and I love it. I'm gonna turn on the AC. It's freaking hot in this car. Now, driving this car is pretty nice. It's still very comfortable for long distance driving. Even though that seat on the bottom, on the driver's side, is pretty ripped, honestly, it's very comfortable. A lot of people fall asleep. It's either my driving style or in general, this car is very comfortable. Now, once you do hit the bumps, it can get pretty harsh, especially in Baltimore roads where you'll really feel that. And for the longest time, I kind of complained about that and still am. It absolutely sounds like your car is about to fall apart every time you hit a pothole or every time you hit a bump or imperfections on the roads with this car. And that is because this car has a sport suspension, because it's part of the sport package. So it's a bit lowered, a little bit stiffer, better handling. It has AMG wheels, bumpers and whatnot. Quote unquote AMG, not really AMG wheels and whatnot, but that's what they call it. You know, this was the time when Mercedes started putting AMG on their regular cars. And driving it around, you can get about 22 miles per gallon in the city. And on the highway, I usually get around 28, and if I really, a little bit push it more with hypermiling, you could get about 30. The highest I've ever gotten mileage-wise on this car was 33. That was on the way to Texas. That was just me abiding by the speed limit and, using cruise control and whatnot. I mean, for the most part, going down south is a straight road. So it's not really something that, requires a lot of effort with the engine. That's how I got 33 miles per gallon on that aspect. It does take premium fuel, which a lot of people might complain. Personally, I'm used to it because ever since I got my first car, which was an Audi A4, I already needed premium. So it's not really a big deal. And, it's the same. A lot of cars now with turbos require premium. So I don't really get the fuss. I get that it's way cheaper with regular fuel. And, I mean, this car is not meant to be cheap. I mean, it's a Mercedes, right? So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind cost-wise. Again, if you guys have any questions regarding the W204, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer it. Anyway, see you guys later. Peace out.